My name is Neal Juern. I'm the CEO here of Seven Tech. Thank you for joining us today. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you setting aside a few minutes just to talk about something that most executives wish they had more clarity on, really, which is IT performance. And that's kind of why we put this together, was we had gotten feedback for over years of working in this industry where executives have told us, "Hey, I wish I had a better way to grade." How our IT company is doing, how our internal IT is doing. And this really gives you that without getting too technical. So we're going to give you a tool that helps really cut through the noise, if you will, identify real gaps and give you the kind of visibility most executives don't have or don't realize they're even missing. Let me show you exactly what you'll get out of this short session. First, a clear executive-friendly scorecard to evaluate your IT across 5 critical business benchmarks. You don't need to be technical to use this. And before I move on to number 2, I just wanted to preface this by saying this is intentionally not a technical webinar. We've gotten feedback, like I said, for many years that executives wanted a non-technical way to do that. And this is intentionally not technical. Second, you'll learn how to spot hidden red flags, the kind that quietly drain time, burn money, or expose your business to risk without showing up on a dashboard somewhere. Third, we'll talk about what smart executives often miss when it comes to their IT provider, how to catch those blind spots early before they become costly. Fourth, we'll give you a practical way to protect your budget, your reputation, and growth from preventable tech issues. And then fifth, you'll get a clear next step to close any gaps, whether that means doing it in-house, escalating that internally, or exploring better support. And finally, we'll wrap up with Q&A. Okay, who is this for? This is for you if you're a Texas business leader, or even if you're not in Texas, as we have some people joining from outside of Texas who are responsible for IT outcomes, but not the tech itself, right? You care about the results, not the configuration. It's for leaders who want to validate IT performance without having to wade through technical jargon or guesswork. And if you've ever wondered what you're really getting for your IT spend or struggled to trace support costs to real business value, you're in the right place today for sure. Maybe you need better visibility before goals and budgets lock in for next year. I know a lot of us are all working on 2026 budgeting and things like that. And you can't really afford to make blind decisions, right? Or maybe you've been told everything's fine, but your gut says otherwise. Even if you believe your tech is in great shape, this gives you a way to get it, kind of back that up with some evidence and to communicate that with confidence to other leaders in your organization. And most of all, this is for you if you want to prevent avoidable failures, ones that could damage your reputation or impact the trust you've worked hard to build in your organization. Like I said, and before we dive into the framework itself, a quick intro. My name is Neal Juern. I'm the CEO here at Seven Tech. I work with business leaders who want to get a clear view of their IT without needing to speak tech. In other words, no geek speak necessary, right? At Seven Tech, we help businesses uncover hidden risks and waste in their IT, the kind that slowly drains budgets, damages trust, and blocks growth. I've spent over a decade working with executives, like probably a lot of you on the webinar today, who felt like they didn't have full visibility into IT. Once we expose those blind spots, they gained confidence, control, and they often recovered significant spend. I'm going to show you some examples uh, in the webinar today. This session isn't a sales pitch at all. It's designed to help you see what great IT oversight really looks like and how to get there without needing to speak tech. But let's be honest, some of you don't need to really see the rest of this presentation. As a matter of fact, a few people reached out to us saying they were going to join this and that they wanted to book kind of a one-on-one with us just to kind of dive deeper. So if you know that's you, there's really no need to wait. You can do that. And this is a no cost opportunity that we are doing. And so if you know you're one of those leaders who just wants it handled, you're ready to compare options, get some good clarity, and make a change, then you don't have to wait to the end of the webinar. You can scan the QR code, and that just books a one-on-one call with us. We'll break down what's working, what's not, and how to fix that fast. There's really no pressure on any of our stuff, no fluff, just the goal of clarity. And for everyone else, let's dive into the framework. Okay, why this framework matters. Here's the reality. When IT seems quiet, most execs assume it's under control until something breaks and exposes a gap no one saw coming. Without a structured way to measure what's going on, IT stays kind of a black box. It's mysterious, it's expensive, and it's full of hidden risks, to be honest. And that black box makes it nearly impossible to lead with confidence, right? You can't manage what you can't see. That's exactly what this framework is built to fix. The executive IT scorecard turns that black box into a clear dashboard. It gives you the visibility, confidence, and control most business leaders wish they had over IT, but rarely do. With this tool, you'll gain clarity on where your environment stands, confidence in how your funds are being used, which is obviously important, strategic foresight to avoid costly surprises. You don't need to get technical. You just need the right lens to lead with clarity. And that's what this framework delivers. So we're going to jump right into it. So this is the Executive IT Scorecard. It's a simple, repeatable framework built for business leaders who don't want to decode, tech jargon, so to speak. It gives you a way to see at a glance how IT is performing across 5 critical areas. And these are them. There's a score, plan, act, measure, refine, and then repeat the process. That same rhythm you use to manage probably a lot of other parts of your business, right? Now applied to IT. The goal to give you a fast, structured way to turn IT into something you can actually manage with confidence. Here's how the scorecard works. The scorecard covers 5 areas that consistently make or break IT performance. And the first one is number one for a reason. We get this all the time. It's reactive versus proactive. Are you always firefighting or preventing problems? Number 2, security and risk. How strong is your protection posture, your security posture? Number 3 is IT spending. Are you getting transparency and efficiency there? Number 4 is metrics and visibility. Are results tracked and reported? And number 5 is accountability. Is it aligned with business goals? Each area gives a score from 1 to 5. Low scores should be, they really show you where risk or waste needs attention, and high scores show you where you're strong. So let's just walk right through it. Category 1, reactive versus proactive. This one hits close to home for a lot of leaders. It's not just about how quickly IT puts out fires, right? That's reactive. It's about whether they're building a system that avoids those fires in the first place. Think of it this way. Would you rather your team patch the hole in the roof after a storm or reinforce it before the rain comes, right? Here's the critical question to ask. Does our IT team anticipate and prevent issues, or are they always in crisis mode? Now, here are some common blind spots that we see. Your team resolves issues quickly, but the same type of problems keep coming back. That's a sign that they're being mostly reactive. You have gaps in your preventative maintenance schedule that no one is tracking. That's an issue. Or maybe you've got a roadmap, but it's sitting in a drawer disconnected from your actual operations. Here's what strong versus weak performance looks like. When you're operating at a 1 or a 2 in this area, it's constantly reactive, right? It feels busy, but progress is stalled. Business goals get delayed because systems are down or staff are stuck waiting on things. At a 5, your technology quietly supports growth. There's a proactive rhythm to checkups, updates, and planning. IT leaders aren't just solving problems, they're actually helping you avoid them altogether. So how do you spot this without getting technical? Ask when the last preventative task was completed. That's one way to do it. Like, hey, when was the last preventative work that we did in our IT department? Not a help desk ticket, a true forward-looking improvement into your systems, right? If no one can answer that, that's a good chance you're stuck more in reactive mode. Now go ahead right now, rate yourself 1 to 5 on this category. A 1 means your team only acts when things are they break. A 5 means you have a clear plan and you're actively preventing problems. And finally, why do most leaders miss this, right? Because everything seems fine when it's quiet, but quiet doesn't mean healthy. Without visibility, we assume things are under control until we're blindsided. So let's break that pattern, kind of move forward from the firefighting to what we call future proofing. So give yourself a score here. And let me tell you about a real example. This is from 2 weeks ago. A local dental practice called us. They were kind of in desperation mode. Their current provider failed to detect that their server was having a hardware failure, and it did. The recovery process hurt their practice very badly. I mean, they were really in a panic. The damage that happened was they didn't have access to their patient dental for more than, their patient data and their whole dental system for more than a week. Their imaging system still can't store X-rays properly, so they're losing important patient information every single day. And they were having problems accessing historic information on patients to really offer proper medical care, right? They called us and they basically said they were prepared to pay whatever they had to pay, even pay out their entire existing IT contract just to get better support because it's hurt their practice so profoundly. Like they were absolutely desperate about it. So we've been working with them, kind of giving them a proposal to improve that, but also give them the kind of proactive support that they would need in a case like that. One, you got to know when, things are going off the rails, like your server's about to fail or something like that. You got to know that, take action to prevent it. And in their case, their IT company just didn't do it. So let's move on to category 2. This is security and risk blind spots. This one's all about protection, right? Not just from the usual suspects like hackers or ransomware, but also legal and operational risks. Okay, so think more from a bigger business perspective, not just in the world of IT. Let's talk about what this category should deliver. This isn't just about firewalls or antivirus. This is about making sure your business isn't blindsided by preventable incidents like failed backups, outdated systems, or compliance penalties. When security works right, it protects your reputation, your operations, and your bottom line. The critical question to ask on this one is that you see on the screen is, are your backups tested? Is our technology up to date? And are we meeting our legal compliance requirements if you're in one of those fields, right? If any of those three are a no or I'm not sure, then you've got exposure. Now let's call out a few of the common blind spots. First, untested backups. Everyone thinks they're fine until they actually need to recover something, right? If they're not tested, they may not work. Second, outdated software. This is one of the biggest ways hackers get in, and it's often overlooked because the systems still work. Your systems are still functioning, but there are vulnerabilities that make a hacker's job easier. Third, compliance, whether it's HIPAA, PCI, there's one called CMMC, or any of the other industry standards compliance requirements. Falling behind can trigger serious fines or liabilities. And so what does great versus weak performance look like on this one? Let's say you have a business that backs up daily, they test them quarterly, and they patch your systems every single week, right? And you get audits maybe twice a week from outside entities. That's a perfect score. That's a 5. Now contrast that with someone who hasn't reviewed a backup in more than a year, isn't sure if their firewall's current, and hasn't done a compliance review since maybe COVID or something like that, right? Then you're a 1 or a 2 on the scale. And if you're not technical, here's one way to tell. Ask, when were our backups last tested and verified by someone other than IT? If there's a pause in your answer, right, then that means you're definitely low on this scale. So take a moment, score yourself on this one, 1 to 5. I'm going to move on to a real world example in this case. And this is interesting because it's also another dental practice. I am not picking on dentists. It's just this one was one that I remember from, I think it was the beginning of the end of 2023. Um, this was a real dental practice. They called us up and they had been hit with ransomware. If you're not familiar with what ransomware is, it's basically a hacker's tool that encrypts all the files on all your systems and says, hey, if you want this back, you got to pay us a ransom. So they had been hit with ransomware. This is a dental practice. Their practice management system was completely locked up and encrypted, so they didn't know who their next patient was supposed to be. They didn't know. They were just seeing whoever showed up. They had no idea. It was just that, they were completely in the dark. Well, their current IT provider, who they've been paying to run backups of their server, attempted to restore, only to find out that their backups were not restorable. Obviously, that is a nightmare, and there's no excuse for that as an IT company. But just knowing that you should test your backups and make sure they are restorable, that could have been avoided, right? So the ransom that they were being demanded was more than 50,000. It was a lady who was the dentist who I was on the phone with. She said, "Well, I'm not going to give you the exact number, but it's more than 50,000." And she purchased this dental practice only 3 years earlier. She was basically concerned about losing the entire business and her investment, right? Now, here's the sad fact. Last I heard from them, they were not able to restore their data. And here's the thing, when they reached out to us, they were saying, "Hey, do you have a way to decrypt these files?" Which we really don't when it gets to that level. And can you help us get our backups working? Which we did look at, but they were never really working in the first place, so we couldn't help them there either. Um, so last I heard from them, they were not able to restore their data from backup. They paid the ransom, but they never got all their data restored. And it just really was hindering their business. I remember I tried to call them a few times after that, and no one was answering the phone anymore. My fear is that they probably closed their doors, all to something that was pretty preventable, down to the fact that if they had just had backups that were tested, they could have restored and their business would have been fine. Let's look at category 3. This one is the one that tends to get everyone's attention fast because it's IT spending and overpaying, basically. Here's what this category should deliver: clear visibility into your technology spend so you know what you're paying for, why you're paying it, and whether it's worth it. It's not just about cutting costs, it's about making sure your money is doing the work it should. The critical question: can you clearly explain what you're paying for in your IT budget and why, right? Can you do that? If you can't break it down by service, vendor, business value, you're probably overpaying. And I'm going to tell you the name of one of our clients who's a new client this year that we helped with this. Let's talk about the blind spots. First, duplicate tools. So we have found this many times that we'll go into organizations. Let me give you an example. We have a fair number of construction clients, and sometimes we'll find that they're licensing Adobe Acrobat, plus they're licensing Bluebeam for the same users. And really, there's kind of not a need to do that usually. Usually it's one or the other. So we find that they're kind of doubling up on licensing and things that they really shouldn't be. Second is just unused licenses. They have licenses that they're not using, and they're paying for those licenses. So that's always a problem. You'd be shocked how much money is lost with licensing that nobody's actually using. And then third, vague invoices. If you have an IT provider, they're giving you an invoice that you can't understand anything on it. It's hard to interpret. It's easy for you to miss waste or kind of bloat, if you will. So what does a 5 look like? You have a clean dashboard of spend. You're doing quarterly reviews, and you cut what you don't doesn't serve your business, right? What's not needed. What does a 1 look like? You have no clear breakdowns, no audits. Vendors chosen years ago are just still kind of billing you for things, and you're really not sure. And if you're not technical, ask to see the last month's IT invoice and try to explain it back to yourself, right? If it doesn't make sense fast, that's a sign. So go ahead and rate yourself 1 to 5 on this. Drop your number in the chat if you're feeling bold enough. And here's a quick takeaway. IT spend shouldn't feel like a mystery bill. It really shouldn't. You should have good visibility and understanding of what you're being billed for. And that leads me to one of our new clients this year. They're called Time Medical. Time Medical is a manufacturer, and they make an amazing life-saving device that's used not only by our U.S. military, but by a lot of first responders. It's really kind of an honor for us to have them as a client with just the impact that they have with the medical devices that they make. Um, their new client, their previous IT provider never audited their Microsoft 365 licensing. They just kind of kept adding new ones. Every time a new employee was hired, they added a new one. And when they left, they just kind of kept the old ones around. So here we are, we're doing onboarding and we're going, why do you have more than double the number of Microsoft 365 licenses than you do employees? It just doesn't add up. They had all these people on business premium licenses that really only needed to be like business basic, or some only needed to just have exchange only email licenses. So they were way overpaying for some of those licenses. When it was all said and done, they were paying about $1,200 a month more than they needed to. That's all money that could have served other important business areas, in the company. So just know that this is a common problem. Don't feel bad if you're like, hey, we haven't audited this. We probably got some waste there. Use this as a catalyst to do it, to make the effort and really kind of stop overpaying in those areas. Category 4, metrics and visibility. What this category should deliver is accountability because you can't manage what you don't measure, right? I have one of my mentors. She's an amazing, very successful businesswoman. She says what you measure improves, and I find that to be absolutely true. So this is an area you want to get some visibility and metrics going so that you can make some improvements. This is where IT starts acting like other departments, like data-driven, performance-minded, transparent. A lot of us have that in other departments of our company, maybe sales, maybe, service even. But if you don't have that in IT, it can definitely lead to problems. The critical question is, do we have some scorecards, some benchmarks, some regular IT reporting to track our performance? If the answer is no, it's like trying to steer a ship that's, while you're blindfolded. Let me hit a few of those blind spots. If you have no dashboards, if IT only shares information when something goes wrong, you're not getting the full picture. If you have no benchmarks, if you don't compare against standards, how do you know what good looks like, right? If you don't have any of that. Inconsistent reporting. If leadership sees IT performance once a year or during a crisis, that's a problem, right? Strong performance looks like this: monthly scorecards, up-to-date targets or uptime targets, really, to see how your uptime is doing. Ticket resolution times tracked and improving. Weak performance looks like this: you only hear about IT when something breaks or during budget season. Never good. If you're not technical, here's how to spot misalignment. Ask, what metrics are we tracking for IT? It's pretty simple. What are the metrics? If the answer is vague or defensive even, you're kind of flying blind there, right? Take a second to score yourself on this, 1 to 5. And if you want to share it, put it in the chat. Here's a quick takeaway. One of my mentors, and I already said it before, said, what you measure improves, right? So just get used to having some visibility, some ways to track this, and you'll feel a lot better about how things are going with IT. Here's a nonprofit that I just met with last week. They're very notable, actually, and I cannot say their name. They're not a current client yet, but if I said the name, you would know who they are. They reached out to us last week, but basically what happened is their problem was they discovered their current IT company wasn't doing any software patching, and they really had no visibility into the work they said they were doing. And so I hope that's not any of you on the call today. So first it started with they discovered they had no patching. They were looking at their systems and realizing no software patches were being installed, which is a big, big problem. It leaves you in high risk of vulnerabilities and hacking attacks and things like that. They also uncovered a lack of security inside of Microsoft 365. And this is a good tip that you can use with your IT, uh, internal IT or your IT provider, is ask them to give you the Microsoft Secure Score. And the Microsoft Secure Score, there's one score and then there's a breakdown of scores. Really, if you just get the one score, this will help you tremendously. If you have that Microsoft 365 Secure Score, a normal score for someone who sets up Microsoft 365 and does nothing else and just uses it is about 30 out of 100. If you do the work to put in better security, you can get that score up into the 90s, which is where most of our clients are. So this nonprofit, they asked their IT company, hey, we want the Microsoft Secure Score, and they kind of dragged their feet and eventually gave it to them, and it was like a 40 something. So very inappropriate considering they had been managing their IT and security for so long. They also realized that they not have proper security. They had no real visibility or accountability with their current IT company. What happened was they hired a new executive. She was technical, but she was looking at all of this from a non-technical perspective, from a true executive perspective, and she kind of brought this to their attention, and it kind of forced them to take action. And so they decided that risk was just too high to keep trusting their current IT company. And then they started vetting out new IT companies, which is why they reached out to us. We're still talking to them. We'll find out if they become a new client in the next few weeks. But just an example of where maybe if you're seeing some of these red flags, you may want to take action. That leads me perfectly into category 5, which is accountability and communication. This is where IT becomes a true business partner, right? Not just a cost center. What this category should deliver is alignment. When IT is plugged into the strategy of the business, things will run smoother, faster, and smarter. One of the things I tell all of our prospects and clients is we're never going to throw technology at you. We're going to first learn about your business, find out what your business needs are, and then we need to match the technology with your business goals. It should never be the other way around. Here's the critical question though. Does your IT team take ownership of results and actively align technology decisions with the company's strategy? Are they even involved in the strategy? If they're just reacting to tickets and they stay in their little silo, then the answer is no. Let's talk about those blind spots. If IT isn't in the room, right? If tech leadership isn't part of any of the strategy meetings, they can't really properly support your mission. It says tech plans don't support revenue. That means, your IT is spending time and money without moving the business forward. It's just sort of technical planning for the sake of planning. Or if there's poor communication, if IT and departments don't speak the same language, sometimes those priorities get lost, right? And so important things don't get done. If you're a 5, your IT leader is at the executives table. Their tech projects support your business goals. IT is aligned with revenue, customer success, and your operations. At a 1, IT is just a cost center. They're reactive and they're separate and they're kind of in their silo. So not sure where you stand. Ask, is our IT team setting direction or just responding to requests, right? So go ahead and give a score on this. This is the final one for a score. A great takeaway here is IT doesn't just support the business, it helps to drive it. It can. IT can be a great driver of business growth, and it's incredible when it's all working well together. So what does your score mean? Once you've scored all 5 categories, this is kind of what you need to look at in the numbers themselves. If you rated a 4 or a 5, that means you're in a pretty strong place in that category. You've got mature practices, solid follow through, and room to maybe even keep improving a little bit. If you scored a 2 or a 3, that category definitely needs attention. You're not in crisis maybe, but there's risk of inefficiency that should be addressed. I would say do something within 90 days to improve that. And then ask if you marked a, I'm sorry, if you marked a one, that's the red zone, right? That's a flashing red light saying, hey, you need to take immediate action. So these are the cracks that turn costly into disruptions, turn into costly disruptions are these number ones. Now, if you scored a one in security and risk or accountability and communication, either of those two special categories, those are critical areas and you need to act on those like today, like especially security and risk. If you scored a one, take immediate action. You're just in a very vulnerable place. Um, the goal here isn't perfection, right? It's pretty hard to get this on a five on everything, although we can get you pretty close with most of our clients. It's clarity. You want to know what the clarity is so you can make appropriate steps. When you see what's really going on in your company, you can do something about it, right? And that's really what our whole goal was with putting this together. So now you've seen where the cracks are. Here's the real question. Why do these cracks go unnoticed, even by experienced and sharp executives, right? Why does that happen? Well, it happens more often than you think. It's not because people aren't smart or paying attention. It's because in IT, the warning signs don't often look like red flags just from the outset. That was kind of one of our goals when we built the scorecard is to help you see things that may seem okay, but really do need attention. So here's the other part. Likability does not equal performance. I could talk on and on about this just because you have an IT team that's likable and they seem trustworthy. You shouldn't necessarily trust them. It's just like accounting, okay? Accounting, it's very common if you have a great accounting professional to still have an external CPA that's looking over their shoulder, right? It's just too costly to be wrong. And it's the same with IT. You need third-party validation on many things. So, second, silence does not equal success. Just because no one's complaining doesn't mean everything's fine, right? Most risks don't come with alarms, and employees rarely report issues until they're burned, and something major happens. And then third, the real cost shows up later. When IT fails, it rarely fails loudly. Instead, it erodes performance in the background. That's usually what failure looks like is it's just things are slowing down over time. People's productivity is dropping. It's not usually always a catastrophic thing. And then, eventually it hits your budget, your kind of customer experience. It affects your reputation. Maybe not on your dashboard, but it does happen. So this is why this is why executives miss IT breakdowns, not because they aren't asking questions, because they aren't getting clear answers. So hopefully this will help you do that. So what are your next steps? Um, so what now? What do I do with all this information? Well, you can do nothing. I mean, that's probably not a wise idea. It doesn't matter if you want to work with us or not. I would definitely encourage you to take action, right? Um, but first, take what you've seen here back to your internal IT team or your current provider. That's one thing you can do. Second, start asking better questions, driving better accountability, pushing for improvements. And then third, and this is where we can help, you can take the next step with us if you want to. Let us show you what better IT support would actually look like. Some of you scored high, that's excellent. Others saw red flags. Either way, this next step is for you. And what we will do, if you feel interested in this, is we will give you a competitive bid. And what we mean by that is we'll show you with all these things handled properly, what that cost looks like, and you can use it as a great comparison tool. No pressure to move forward with us at all. We'll just give you something that you can have for transparency. If you scored well, it's like likely you do have a strong IT provider or a strong IT team, and that's great. But even the best relationships can benefit from a second opinion, just like I said in the accounting example. We'll give you a friendly, no pressure competitive bid. You can validate what you're paying and you can say, this, am I getting what I'm paying for? Right. So we put a link, by the way, in the chat if you want to do that. If your score came in lower than you'd like, we'll build you something even more valuable. We'll build you what's called an IT support comparison and competitive bid tailored to your results. We'll work with you, we'll kind of understand your results, and then we'll give you a comparison of how we stack up against that and how we would help you solve some of those problems. And just to be crystal clear, this is not about switching vendors today, right? This is a big decision. It's not easy changing IT providers. This is about clarity, right? Clarity about value, clarity about next steps, clarity about whether your current setup is serving you or it's holding you back. So if you want to run the numbers, if you want us to help you run those numbers, whether you're a 5 looking for peace of mind or a 2 looking for better path, just click on the link or scan the QR code, and we'd love to do that. It's no obligation by any means. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys on the next one.